So, to start us off today, I want you to try and picture a road, but not just any road. Picture this really winding two-lane road.
Okay, I'm with you.
And it is carving its way through this dense, incredibly lush, just vibrant green jungle, or, maybe a steep, really unforgiving mountain landscape.
Right, something wild.
Exactly, something wild. And the road hugs the cliffs, it dips down into the valleys, and it turns back on itself, and it is staggeringly beautiful. But if we are being completely honest here,
It is definitely not efficient.
not at all. It is decidedly not efficient.
Yeah, it's basically the exact opposite of a straight line. I mean, it's a road that literally forces the traveler to respect the terrain, you know.
Right.
It moves with the environment, it adapts to, like, the roots and the rock face, rather than just trying to conquer it through sheer force.
And that visual, which actually comes straight from our source material today, perfectly captures the core tension we are looking at. Because modern culture
Oh, modern culture hates a winding road.
hates it. Whether you are, working at a massive tech conglomerate or running a nonprofit or focusing on the specific subject of our deep dive today, which is religious movements,
Right.
modern culture demands that we blast a sterile, high-speed superhighway right through that terrain.
Yes. Just pave it over.
Exactly. The mandate is always like, reach the destination as fast as humanly possible, regardless of what has to be bulldozed or destroyed to make it happen.
Yeah, speed above all else.
But the material we are decoding today argues fiercely against that superhighway. It makes the case that the slower, winding road, the one that works with the environment, that is deeply rooted and full of life, is actually, well, the only path that survives the test of time.
It is such a profound shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Because we're navigating a culture that is utterly obsessed with acceleration.
Completely.
Faster growth is treated as this unquestioned virtue, to the point where metrics and scale have essentially become substitutes for actual meaning.
Wow, yeah. Substitutes for meaning?
Right. And the stakes here are incredibly high because, as the text points out, frantic movement is very often not evidence of life at all. Yeah. In fact, frantic movement is frequently evidence of deep instability.
Okay, that is the exact tension we are pulling apart today. So for you listening, our mission here is to decode the anatomy of a truly durable, what the author calls a God-sustained movement.
Yes, that's the key phrase.
We're diving deep into the concluding materials of a book called Reimagining Church Disciple Making. The subtitle is The God-Sustained Movement of Disciple Multiplication by Chris R. Velasquez.
It's a dense text, but so rewarding.
Really rewarding. We are going to examine the book's powerful epilogue along with this incredibly dense stack of actionable appendices. I mean, we're talking discussion questions, reflective exercises, practical applications.
Some very intense workflows in there.
Oh, incredibly intense workflows. It is essentially a masterclass in building a legacy that outlasts human ego.
And that contrast, between human ego and enduring legacy is exactly where the epilogue plants its flag. The author draws this really sharp, unforgiving line between the illusion of scale and the reality of transformation.
Yes, the illusion of scale.
Because the fundamental argument here is that God does not merely sustain activity, he sustains alignment.
Okay, let's unpack this concept of activity versus alignment, because I think it applies to almost any organizational structure, not just religious ones.
Absolutely.
Think of like a Silicon Valley startup.
A perfect example.
Right. The founders get this initial burst of funding, and they decide to scale as aggressively as possible without ever, building a solid internal culture or a viable product architecture.
Because you want the numbers.
Exactly. They throw massive amounts of money at marketing. They hire hundreds of people in a matter of weeks. They generate this huge amount of quote-unquote activity.
Yeah.
But it ultimately implodes because the founders were obsessed with visibility, not viability.
That's it right there. Visibility over viability.
They wanted the optics of success without doing the foundational work. And the source text points out something very similar for movements. You can build a massive organization purely through human effort.
Oh, people do it all the time.
Right. You can use charisma, immense social pressure, slick branding, raw talent, aggressive marketing.
You can manufacture momentum.
Yes, you can manufacture it. You can gather massive crowds just by creating a really exciting event.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Entire empires can rise on the strength of a single, highly charismatic personality. I mean, systems can scale up rapidly just through sheer operational efficiency.
Sure.
But the text makes a crucial distinction here. It says that only what is rooted in truth, humility, integrity, and a deep dependence on God can actually endure the weight of time.
Wow.
Because what is built merely on visibility and human effort, it inevitably collapses the exact second the visibility fades, or, the moment the charismatic leader steps off the stage.
I have to play devil's advocate here, though. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of someone actually leading one of these organizations right now.
Okay, let's do it.
In almost any sector, frantic movement, massive crowd gathering, high attendance numbers, charts going up and to the right.
The hockey stick growth.
Right, the hockey stick. Isn't that usually seen as the primary evidence of life? Like, if the room is packed and the budget is overflowing, everyone naturally assumes the organization is thriving.
Of course they do.
So how does a leader actually distinguish between genuine, healthy momentum and a shallow-rooted tree that is just, waiting for a strong gust of wind to topple it? Because if the numbers look good, who is going to question the roots?
It's a great question. And what's fascinating here is how the author addresses that exact vulnerability by diagnosing this concept of ego fragility.
Ego fragility.
Right. When an organization is built on a foundation of human ego, even if, and this is important, even if it has a really noble mission statement.
Yeah, on paper it looks great.
Exactly. Even then, it inherently becomes fragile. Why? Because that ego must constantly be defended.
Oh, wow.
It has to be fed. It has to be preserved at all costs. The text argues that organizations shaped by fear will eventually just reproduce fear in their members.
That makes total sense.
Right. Movements built on the vanity of their leaders will inevitably reproduce insecurity down through the ranks. So to answer your question about distinguishing between the shallow tree and the deep roots, the book poses what I believe is its most profound diagnostic question. It asks leaders, what kind of people are we becoming while we grow?
Just pause on that for a second. What kind of people are we becoming while we grow?
It's heavy.
It really stops you in your tracks because it completely bypasses the spreadsheet and goes straight to the psychology of the team.
Exactly. Because growth without transformation doesn't actually mean you are succeeding.
Right.
It just means you are creating much larger, more amplified versions of your existing dysfunction.
You're scaling your problems.
Yes. Expansion without maturity just multiplies your weaknesses across a wider geographic area.
Yeah.
If you have massive success without the character to sustain it, you produce a type of influence that simply cannot be trusted.
That is so true.
And the text offers this very stern warning. It says that achievement without surrender slowly forms leaders who learn how to perform beautifully in public while they're completely deteriorating in private.
And sadly, we see the fallout of that constantly in the news cycle.
All the time.
Leaders who know exactly how to hit their marks, deliver the inspiring keynote, manage the optics publicly, but their private lives, their mental health, or their ethical boundaries are just completely disintegrating.
It's a tragedy, really.
It is. But if that kind of dysfunctional growth is happening, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum, right?
No, not at all.
It happens because the operating system of the organization is fundamentally flawed. And that realization forces us to look at the actual vocabulary we use, which is where the appendices of this text become incredibly confrontational.
Oh, yeah. The text insists that we cannot change our trajectory until we audit our language.
Our language.
Yes. This is presented in the first major exercise in the appendix, which is called the Biblical Glossary Audit.
Okay. What does that entail?
The premise is that if your organization is producing the wrong outcomes, it is highly likely because your foundational definitions are broken.
So for you listening right now, think about the vocabulary you throw around every day in your own work, in your team or your community.
Yeah, words we use without thinking.
Words like success or impact or engagement. Are those words actually grounded in a shared, rigorous truth, or are they just vague corporate jargon that you use to hide a really weak strategy?
Often it's the latter.
Right. And the exercise in the text challenges leaders to take culturally loaded terms, specifically words like church, disciple, disciple maker, leader, multiplication, and reach, and literally put them under a microscope.
The process of this audit is quite rigorous. You are asked to look honestly at how these terms are practically used in your daily operations. Not theoretically, but practically.
Like, how do they show up on a Tuesday?
Exactly. And then you compare them to how Scripture actually defines them. But the real friction of the exercise, the part that hurts.
There's always a part that hurts.
Always. The follow-up question is, what specific changes in your strategy, your budget, and your calendar would be required if you adopted the stricter, more precise definition?
Oh, that's brilliant, because if your organizational definition of reach just functionally means, I don't know, how many people passively scrolled past our video for 3 seconds?
Which is how a lot of places measure it.
Right. Instead of measuring it as how many lives were fundamentally changed through actual relationship.
Then your whole system is skewed.
Exactly. Your entire strategy is going to optimize for the wrong thing. You'll spend thousands of dollars on better cameras and social media ads instead of investing in, like, community development.
Yes.
So the text argues we have to move from a mindset of addition to a mindset of multiplication.
Which are very different things.
Very different. And to illustrate this, the author provides this thing called a reproduction chain map.
Let's walk through that.
Okay, so the sequence goes like this. First, believer, then disciple maker, then church planter, and finally, movement catalyst.
It sounds like a great pipeline on paper.
It sounds amazing on paper.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at that chain practically, in the real world, where does it usually snap? Like, why is it so incredibly hard to get people past that very first stage of just being a consumer?
That right there is the crucial bottleneck. The text explains that this pathway breaks down almost universally because ministries inherit operational models that depend way too much on constant input from a few highly centralized, highly trained professionals.
Okay, so the experts.
Right, the experts. The reproduction chain snaps because it functions as an event-based program rather than a generational process owned by the people.
Well, oh, I see.
When the entire system relies on a central expert to do all the heavy lifting, to deliver the message, to organize the care, to manage the logistics.
The ordinary person is just sitting there.
Exactly. They are implicitly taught that they are just a spectator.
Wow.
So the transition from disciple to disciple maker completely fails because the structure itself silently communicates that making disciples is a job for the professionals on the payroll.
It's above their pay grade.
Right. It's not for the everyday participants.
Which brings us to a massive structural problem, because if the bottleneck is centralization, then the only way to fix the broken reproduction chain is to completely eliminate those centralized choke points.
You have to dismantle them.
And the text argues that the only way to achieve that is through radical simplicity.
Radical simplicity, yes.
Think about it like the difference between a highly complex proprietary software system and an open source code.
Okay, I like this analogy.
Right, so the proprietary system might look sleek, it might be impressive, but it requires an entire specialized IT team, constant expensive updates, and this massive server room just to keep it from crashing.
It's expensive and fragile.
Very fragile.
Yeah.
But elegant open source code. Literally anyone, anywhere can adapt it, deploy it, and share it on their own device without having to ask for permission from headquarters.
That is a brilliant parallel, because complexity is so often a trap.
Yeah.
The text warns that we tend to equate complexity with sophistication.
We really do.
We build these incredibly elaborate systems and we think, oh, look how advanced we are. Look at our production value.
Oh, look at our lighting rig.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in reality, that complexity is just hiding massive fragility underneath. The strongest, most durable systems are always understandable, transferable, and repeatable by anyone.
And to force organizations to actually test their simplicity, the source material introduces this exercise called the 3 barangay test.
This is such a great test.
It is. Now, for some context for you listening, a barangay is a small local neighborhood or village district in the Philippines.
Right.
And this test asks 3 absolutely brutal questions of any ministry model or organizational strategy.
Brutal, but necessary.
Very necessary. Number 1, can it work in a rural barangay?
Okay.
Number 2, can local leaders reproduce it entirely without needing outside specialists to fly in?
Oh, that's a high bar.
And number 3, can it function with minimal funding and infrastructure?
Yeah, that last one hurts.
Honestly, I want you listening to run this thought experiment right now. Just imagine what would happen if your organization's central funding or your main headquarters completely disappeared for 90 days.
Just vanished.
Poof, gone. Would your mission continue organically at the local level, or would everything just grind to an immediate halt because the money and the managers disappeared?
It is a terrifying thought experiment for most leaders, because the honest answer is usually that the mission would completely collapse.
Yeah, it would be over.
And if the answer to any of those 3 barangay questions is no, the author's directive is uncompromising. The model must be simplified, or parts of it must be removed immediately.
No exception.
No exceptions. And if we connect this to the historical context of the text, it reminds us of how the early Jesus movement actually functioned.
Right, historically.
It transformed the world not through inaccessible elite complexity and not through massive budgets or impressive buildings.
They definitely didn't have a massive budget.
No, it spread through truth that ordinary people, I'm talking fishermen, tax collectors, everyday citizens, could easily embody, reproduce, and pass on in their own homes.
Wow.
The power of the movement was never in polished professional performance. It was always in transformed lives, carrying a living truth into new environments.
But practically speaking, stripping away that complexity is going to trigger a lot of resistance.
Oh, a ton of resistance.
Because we love our structures. We find comfort in them, which is why the next tool in the appendix is the structure life audit.
This one is intense.
It is. You are instructed to take every single structure in your organization. I am talking about every recurring meeting, every schedule, every internal policy, every reporting line.
Everything on the calendar.
Everything. And you have to classify each one into one of 3 buckets. Is it life-giving? Is it neutral? Or is it hindering?
Wow.
The core question is, does this structure still serve the mission, or has it quietly replaced the mission?
And doing that audit honestly, that requires an enormous amount of courage.
I can imagine.
Think about sitting in a boardroom and having to tell a senior leader that their favorite weekly meeting or some elaborate event they've championed for 5 years is actually categorized as hindering.
Oh, I can hear the pushback right now.
Okay.
The leader is going to slam their hand on the table and say, we can't get rid of that. It ensures quality control. It maintains our standard of excellence.
Right, excellence.
Yeah. So how does the text navigate the argument that simplification lowers the quality of the output?
By fundamentally challenging how we define excellence.
Okay, how so?
The author points out that in many institutional models, we actually disguise dependency under the word excellence.
Disguise dependency as excellence. That is fascinating.
Right. We build these elaborate, highly produced systems to ensure a pristine, high-quality experience for the consumer. But in doing so, we are forced to hoard all the operational capacity at the top.
Oh, because only the experts can maintain that level of production.
Exactly. We put all the responsibility on a few highly skilled people. A truly God-sustained system, according to the text, must do the exact opposite.
It has to decentralize.
Yes. It must distribute capacity to the edges. It must simplify the requirements of obedience so that literally anyone, regardless of their professional background, can participate fully without needing a central control hub to manage them.
So once an organization strips away all that bloated programming, and the system is simple enough that it can literally be carried by anyone, anywhere, the strategy fundamentally shifts.
Completely shifts.
You no longer need to draw people into your centralized building. You can authentically embed your mission into any local culture.
Yes.
And this is where the deep dive moves into incarnational strategy and cultural intelligence. It's the shift from trying to inspire a crowd from a distance, like, on a stage or through a screen, to creating a culture of deep obedience through physical proximity and earned trust.
This brings us to a deeply practical application in the text called the Barangay Presence Plan.
The Barangay Presence Plan.
It is a tool designed to help leaders actually map out a specific community. But critically, they aren't mapping out demographics the way a marketing firm would to target consumers.
Right, they aren't looking for target audiences.
No, they are mapping relational networks. They are tasked with identifying key families, local community leaders, open households, trusted persons of peace, and entrenched spiritual or social barriers.
It's like sociological mapping.
Exactly. It is a tool designed to force a shift away from event-based engagement. Because instead of spending your energy trying to convince a whole neighborhood to drive to a polished service on Sunday morning across town,
Which is what everyone tries to do.
right, you shift to relationship-based engagement. You are visiting homes, you are sharing meals, you are listening to local problems, and you are integrating the mission directly into the existing relational fabric of the neighborhood.
But embedding yourself into a culture means you have to actually understand the nuances of that culture.
You can't just parachute in.
Exactly. And the source provides a fascinating tool for this. It's called the contextual discernment chart. And in this book, it is specifically focused on the Filipino context.
Right.
As a leader, you are supposed to evaluate local cultural traits and categorize them based on whether they help organizational multiplication or if they resist it.
Yes, it's a very honest evaluation.
And one of the traits the book lists is family cohesion. Now, on the surface, family cohesion sounds entirely positive.
It sounds wonderful.
Right. A tight-knit family is universally seen as a good thing. So how does the text explain that something so positive could actually resist a movement multiplying?
It's a brilliant sociological nuance, honestly. The text acknowledges that cultural traits are very often double-edged swords.
Okay.
Family cohesion is a beautiful, deeply stabilizing force in a community. However, in the context of trying to multiply a movement, it can become a powerful point of resistance.
No.
Well, if loyalty to the family unit prevents an individual from stepping out to lead a new group, that's a problem.
Oh, I see.
If the family demands absolute conformity,
Right.
or if they create a closed social loop that is highly suspicious of outsiders or new ideas, that cohesion effectively quarantines the movement.
Wow.
It stops it from spreading to the next neighborhood.
That makes total sense. The strength of the bond literally becomes a wall.
Exactly. Another profound example the text highlights in this cultural audit is the concept of clergy dependence.
Clergy dependence.
Yes. In many cultures, particularly in the Philippines, but certainly mirrored worldwide, there is a deep, historically ingrained reverence for the professional religious leader.
Right. The underlying assumption that the holy person has to be the one to do the holy work.
Exactly.
If someone is sick, you call the professional. If someone needs teaching, call the professional.
Precisely. And while that dynamic usually stems from a place of genuine respect, the text identifies clergy dependence as a massive structural bottleneck.
Because it stops reproduction.
It severely paralyzes a movement because ordinary people will respectfully refuse to step into their own leadership calling.
Out of respect.
Out of respect. They assume they aren't qualified, that they don't have the theological degree, and therefore only the paid professionals have the authority or the spiritual permission to do the work.
That is wild to think about.
And the text fiercely challenges leaders to confront these dynamics. It specifically warns them not to mistake cultural familiarity with Christianity for actual obedience to Christ.
That distinction, mistaking cultural politeness for actual transformation, is devastating.
It really is.
Because if you walk into a room and everyone politely nods, they agree with your concepts, and they respect your authority because it's culturally expected of them.
And nothing changes.
Right. If absolutely no one changes how they live their life or takes personal ownership of the mission, you don't have a movement. You just have a very well-behaved crowd.
A very compliant audience.
Exactly. And if your strategy has fundamentally shifted from managing these well-behaved crowds at big centralized events to this messy, local, relationship-based presence, then it stands to reason that your old methods of measuring success are completely obsolete.
They're worse than obsolete, actually. They become actively misleading.
Misleading.
Yes. If your goal has changed, but your scorecard remains the same, you will inevitably drift back to your old behaviors just to satisfy the scorecard.
Oh, because humans optimize for whatever they are measured by.
Exactly. Which introduces what the text frames as the heaven audit, utilizing a tool called the Kingdom Scorecard.
The heaven audit.
Yes. The premise here is designed to strip away all organizational pretense. It asks, if heaven were to audit your ministry today, which of your current metrics would be exposed as mere vanity metrics?
And that hits right at the ego we talked about earlier.
Oh, right in the ego.
Because vanity metrics are the things we love to measure. It's attendance numbers, it's the size of the operating budget, it's social media reach, it's the sheer volume of activity.
The flashy stuff?
It is all the stuff that looks incredible on a glossy annual report and makes the board of directors happy.
Right.
The text demands we replace those with kingdom metrics. But okay, let's pause here and live in the real world for a second.
Okay, real world.
If I am a local leader, metrics pay the bills.
They do.
If I go to my board or my funding partners and say, hey, everyone, we're going to stop tracking how many people come to our events, and instead we are going to measure obedience and generational depth.
You're going to get some very concerned looks.
I am going to get fired.
Yeah, probably.
It is absolutely terrifying for a leader to let go of tangible numbers. How do you even put a quantifiable number on a changed home? How does a leader survive this transition without losing their funding or their mind?
You are naming the exact friction that causes most leaders to abandon this process halfway through.
I bet.
It is terrifying because it requires a profound, painful shift in a leader's identity. The author keenly notes that ambitious, driven people find it incredibly difficult to accept that not everything that can grow should grow at the accelerated pace their ambition desires.
Wow.
The wisdom of a God-sustained movement isn't just knowing how to increase capacity. It is having the discernment to know what must remain fiercely protected while that capacity increases.
That is a delicate balance.
It is. And to help leaders navigate this extreme pressure from boards and budgets, the text offers a stabilizing tool called the Season Discernment Review.
Walk me through that. How does that help relieve the pressure?
The Season Discernment Review asks leaders to step back and honestly assess what specific phase of life their movement is actually in. It defines 5 distinct seasons.
Okay, what are they?
Are you laying a foundation?
Hmm.
Are you expanding? Are you multiplying? Are you consolidating? Or are you reproducing?
Okay.
The danger always lies at the two extremes. On one side, you have the danger of rushing formation.
Rushing formation.
Yes. This happens when a leader feels the exact pressure you just described. The fear of losing funding, the ambition to look successful, the external demand to show immediate results. So they rush people into leadership before their character is actually formed.
Which leads to the burnout and ethical collapse as we talked about.
Exactly. But on the other side, you have the danger of delaying obedience.
Okay, what does that look like?
This is when leaders get paralyzed by a desire to over-prepare. They want to perfect the system, or they wait until conditions are absolutely flawless before asking anyone to take action.
It's that tension of the winding road again. We constantly want the superhighway metrics because they are easy to defend in a board meeting. But heaven values the winding road because it produces actual resilience.
Yes.
Heaven values deep multiplication, not just the illusion of crowds. As the book states so plainly, what is built on ego eventually becomes fragile because ego must constantly be defended.
It's a brilliant quote.
It really is. If my entire identity as a leader is tied to the vanity metric of how many people are in the room, I will eventually compromise the integrity of the movement just to keep that number artificially high.
You have to feed the machine.
Exactly. I will lower the bar of commitment just to keep people from leaving.
And that psychological reality brings us to the most difficult phase of the entire book, implementation.
The now what phase?
Right. Because at this point, the text has systematically dismantled the old paradigm of fast, centralized, ego-driven growth. It has exposed the flawed vocabulary, the broken structures, and the vanity metrics.
It's basically torn the house down to the studs.
Yes. But a leader cannot just walk into the office on a Monday morning, declare that the entire organizational model is wrong, and expect everyone to magically pivot.
Oh, that would be a disaster.
Absolute chaos, mutiny, likely the complete collapse of the organization.
Exactly. You need an actual bridge from the old way to the new way. And the author doesn't just leave you with the philosophical deconstruction, right?
No, thankfully.
The appendices provide incredibly robust tools for this Monday morning reality. And it starts with the Unity Covenant draft.
This is a crucial tool.
So this is a 3-part covenant designed for a network or a leadership team. It forces the team to establish their non-negotiable truths, their flexible methods, and their shared mission outcomes.
Yes.
And the primary psychological goal of this covenant is to prevent territorialism.
Because people protect their turf.
Oh, human nature dictates that the moment you start decentralizing power and resources, people get very, very protective of their little fiefdoms.
They absolutely do.
The covenant creates a shared language that maintains trust without suffocating the unique local expressions of the movement.
But alongside managing the team dynamics, the leader has to manage their own overwhelming workload during a massive transition like this.
Yeah, you still have to do your job while changing the whole system.
Right. To address the sheer volume of change required, the text introduces a highly practical 4-step workflow that leaders are instructed to use to manage their responsibilities.
Okay.
It is a deceptively simple but rigorous system.
What are the steps?
First, capture. You must write down every single task, burden, idea, or unresolved commitment the exact moment it enters your mind.
Get it out of your head.
Yes. Second, clarify. You have to look at that item and determine what it actually means and if it requires an action.
Okay.
Third, organize. You sort these actions by context, urgency, and what the text specifically calls kingdom leverage.
Kingdom leverage, interesting.
And finally, review. You commit to reviewing and acting on this system on a weekly basis.
When I read that section, it felt very reminiscent of classic productivity systems, like getting things done, but applied directly to spiritual and organizational leadership.
Yes, it grounds the spiritual in the practical.
And what really hit me was the mental bandwidth audit from the advanced exercises.
Oh, that one is so revealing.
It is. It asks you to sit down and list the top 10 unresolved thoughts or anxieties that you revisit daily.
Just reading that prompt makes me stressed.
Right. We all know that feeling, that low-level exhaustion of constant mental noise. The anxiety of carrying a burden that you haven't actually clarified into a physical next step.
It just drains you.
It does. And the text asks a piercing diagnostic question about that mental noise. Is this burden producing obedience, or is it only producing anxiety?
That distinction is profound.
Yeah.
Is it producing obedience or only anxiety?
Yeah.
If a burden is just spinning in your head as anxiety, it is not serving the mission. It is just draining your capacity.
It's a useless bandwidth.
Exactly. This thread of discerning what is actually ours to carry runs through the entire implementation section, and it culminates in what might be the most liberating exercise in the book.
Which one is that?
It's called positioning versus producing.
Positioning versus producing.
Yes. Leaders are asked to take their major initiatives, their biggest goals, and forcefully divide the required actions into two distinct lists.
Oh.
List 1 is what we can faithfully do. List 2 is what only God can do.
I cannot emphasize enough what a massive relief of pressure that exercise is.
It's huge.
It is intensely practical. As a leader, especially in a high-stakes environment, your default setting is trying to manufacture the final outcomes.
You want to control the results.
You exhaust yourself trying to control how people react, trying to force the growth, essentially trying to play God.
Yes.
This exercise draws a hard boundary. It tells the leader. You manage your faithful actions, you have the conversation, you train the volunteer, you map the neighborhood, and then you completely surrender the result.
You do your part, and you step back.
It separates faithful stewardship from the illusion of control.
And letting go of that illusion of control brings us to the philosophical climax of the entire text.
The ultimate question.
Yes, it is the ultimate diagnostic question that the author poses, functioning as the final stress test for any movement, organization, or individual life.
Brace yourselves for this one.
The text asks, if God withdrew his presence entirely, what parts of your movement would still function perfectly, and what would immediately collapse?
That question takes your breath away.
It does.
If God withdrew his presence, what would still function? Because if we are totally honest, a massive percentage of modern organizations, ministries, and nonprofits would just keep running smoothly on Monday morning.
They wouldn't even miss a beat.
No. They are running on the sheer momentum of human effort, slick marketing, big budgets, and charismatic communication. No one would even notice that the divine presence was gone, because the machine is entirely self-sufficient.
That is the ultimate warning of the book. If your organization runs flawlessly without the presence of God, it is not a God-sustained movement. It is simply a human-engineered machine.
Wow.
The author reminds us that at the end of history, many celebrated empires, massive platforms, and famous personalities will simply fade into obscurity. The goal of this winding road is not to build something that looks impressive in the eyes of the world.
Right.
The goal is to become trustworthy in the hands of God.
Trustworthy over impressive.
Exactly.
So let's recap the incredible terrain we've covered today. We started by looking at that fast, fragile superhighway, a culture that is obsessed with vanity metrics, centralized control, frantic activity, and ego-driven scale.
This straight line.
The straight line. And through the deeply challenging audits, the uncomfortable questions, and the practical frameworks in Chris R. Velazquez's work, we've mapped out a completely different path.
The winding road.
The winding, deeply rooted road. It is a path defined by radical simplicity, by distributing capacity to ordinary people, by applying deep cultural intelligence to local neighborhoods, and by a relentless focus on reproducing truth rather than hoarding power in centralized systems.
It's not easy.
No, it is undeniably a slower path. It requires more patience, more surrender, but it is the only path that is truly durable.
It is the profound difference between building a temporary monument to your own ambition and cultivating a living, breathing ecosystem that will outlast you by generations.
Beautifully said.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Drawing from an incredibly powerful line hidden in the text, the author writes, every structure eventually reveals the spirit that built it.
Wow. Every structure reveals the spirit that built it.
So for you listening right now, I encourage you to take a hard, honest look at the structures in your own life today. Look at your daily routines, look at your family dynamics, look at the way your team at work operates, or how your community group functions.
Really examine them.
Look past the stated goals, look past the polished mission statement hanging on the wall, and look at the actual functional design of the system you are participating in. What spirit is that structure quietly revealing to the world right now?
Is it fear?
Is it a desperate need for control? Is it an obsession with vanity and metrics? Or is it humility, trust, and vibrant life?
That is a question worth sitting with for a long time. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We highly encourage you to continue exploring the source material, the epilogue, and those incredible appendices on your own. Until next time, keep exploring the winding road.